In the grand narrative of Roman history, we often focus on the glory of Julius Caesar, the power of Augustus, the might of Trajan, or the transformation under Constantine. But hidden between these monumental figures lies a period so unstable, so chaotic, and so close to total collapse that it nearly ended the Roman Empire forever. This was the 3rd century crisis, a 50-year nightmare of civil war, plague, economic meltdown, and foreign invasion that nearly destroyed the empire from within and without. What caused this collapse? Who rose to power during these dark years? And how did Rome, fractured and gasping for survival, manage to hold on? To understand the crisis, we must begin with the death of a single emperor, Septimius Severus, in 211 CE. His death marked the end of stability in the Severan dynasty. His son, Caracalla, ruled with brutality and expanded citizenship to all free men in the empire, not out of generosity but as a way to collect more taxes. He was murdered in 217 by a disaffected soldier, sparking a chain of rapid power transitions that would become the pattern for the next 5 decades. Rome fell into a cycle where emperors rose not by legitimacy or Senate approval, but by the sword. Any military general with a loyal army could be proclaimed emperor, and they often were. Between 235 and 284 CE, over 25 emperors ruled Rome, many reigning for only months before being assassinated or defeated in battle. Historians would later call them the Barracks Emperors, military men who came from the provinces and took power with the backing of legions. Some had noble intentions. Some wanted reform. Few lived long enough to make a difference. The beginning of this chaotic spiral is usually marked by the assassination of Emperor Alexander Severus in 235 CE. He was killed by his own troops, frustrated by his attempts to negotiate with Germanic tribes rather than confront them in war. His death ushered in a new era, one where loyalty, fear, and opportunism ruled. His successor, Maximinus Thrax, was a soldier emperor, the first of many. Tall, brutal, and unrefined, Maximinus taxed the elites to fund military campaigns and ruled from the front lines rather than Rome. He was seen as a barbarian by many senators, and within 3 years he was overthrown and killed. But that didn't restore order. Instead, it opened the floodgates. Over the next 2 decades, the empire witnessed a whiplash of rulers. Some were chosen by troops, others by the Senate, and some seized power by simply marching on Rome. The imperial throne became a death sentence. In a single year, 238 CE, 6 different emperors claimed power. It was a dangerous game of survival, and none could keep hold of the empire for long. But political instability was only part of the problem. The Roman Empire was also facing a devastating pandemic. The plague of Cyprian, named after a bishop who described it in vivid detail, struck in the 250s. It was not the first pandemic Rome had faced. The Antonine plague of the 160s had already weakened the empire, but this new outbreak was equally devastating. Victims suffered fever, vomiting, blindness, and death. In some cities, it is said that thousands died daily. The army was weakened, the economy slowed, and morale collapsed. As the population shrank, so did tax revenue, military strength, and agricultural output. Rome's manpower crisis deepened, just as the empire needed every soldier and worker it could find. And then came the foreign invasions. The empire's borders were under siege from nearly every side. In the east, the Persian Sassanid Empire was on the rise, replacing the Parthians and proving far more aggressive. King Shapur I invaded Roman territory, capturing Antioch and humiliating Roman forces. In one of the most disastrous moments of the crisis, Roman Emperor Valerian marched east to fight Shapur and was captured alive in 260 CE. He would spend the rest of his life in captivity, used as a living trophy by the Persians. In the west, Germanic tribes took advantage of Rome's weakness. The Goths ravaged the Balkans, the Franks pushed into Gaul, and the Alemanni crossed into Italy. Rome's borders, once tightly guarded by legions, were now porous and crumbling. Amid this chaos, the empire began to fracture. In 260 CE, the Roman world effectively split into three. In the west, a Roman general named Postumus created the so-called Gallic Empire, ruling over Gaul, Britain, and parts of Spain. It had its own emperors, its own army, and functioned independently from Rome. Meanwhile, in the east, the city of Palmyra rose to prominence. Led by the brilliant and charismatic Queen Zenobia, Palmyra became a powerful breakaway state. Zenobia claimed descent from Cleopatra and ruled a vast territory that included Syria, Egypt, and parts of Asia Minor. She defied Roman authority and declared her son emperor. For a moment, it seemed like Rome had truly fallen apart. Amid this darkness, a few emperors did rise who tried to stabilize the empire. One was Gallienus, the son of Valerian. He ruled for over a decade and attempted to rebuild Roman military strength. He created a mobile cavalry force, reformed the army, and supported intellectuals and art. But his rule was constantly threatened by usurpers, invasions, and assassination attempts. Despite his efforts, Gallienus could not reverse the empire's decline. He was assassinated in 268, and yet another power struggle began. Then came a turning point. A series of capable emperors, Claudius II, Gothicus, Aurelian, and Probus, began to restore order. Claudius defeated the Goths in a decisive battle and earned the title Gothicus. Though he died of plague, his brief reign showed that Rome could still defend itself. His successor Aurelian was perhaps the most critical figure of the recovery. Ruling from 270 to 275 CE, Aurelian crushed the Gallic Empire in the west and reconquered Palmyra in the east. He earned the title Restitutor Orbis, the restorer of the world. Aurelian also began construction of massive new walls around Rome, sensing that no city was immune from attack. But even he could not escape the fate of many emperors before him. He was assassinated by his own officers in a palace conspiracy. Finally, in 284 CE, a man named Diocles, a low-born soldier from Dalmatia, rose to power. He would become known as Diocletian. With his ascension, the crisis came to an end. Diocletian realized that no single man could rule the entire Roman Empire effectively anymore. The territory was too vast, the challenges too complex. So he made a bold decision to split the empire into two administrative halves. He appointed a co-emperor, Maximian, and later established a tetrarchy, a rule of 4 emperors, to manage different regions. Diocletian reformed the tax system, standardized currency, and created a bureaucracy that could withstand instability. His reign marked a new chapter for the empire. Though the unity of the empire had been shaken, Rome would now endure, in both the east and west, for many more centuries. The 3rd century crisis was one of the darkest and most dangerous periods in Roman history. It exposed the limits of imperial power, the vulnerabilities of vast borders, and the dangers of military overreach. It showed how disease, internal division, and external threat could bring even the greatest empire in history to the brink of collapse. But it also demonstrated resilience. Against all odds, Rome did not fall. It adapted. It survived. And through that survival, it entered a new phase, one that would shape the medieval and modern worlds to come.